The sun was setting over the lush, green hills of Elora, casting long shadows across the quiet village nestled in the valley. The air smelled of damp earth and blooming flowers, a comforting scent that had been part of life for generations. The Kryn, a peaceful alien species with smooth, pale skin and large, expressive eyes, lived here in harmony with their surroundings. They respected nature, took only what they needed, and believed in balance above all else. For centuries, this way of life had kept them safe from harm, or so they thought. But there were whispers among the elders, tales passed down through generations about creatures called Garnax. These mythical beasts were said to be enormous, with jagged teeth and claws sharp enough to tear through metal. Legend spoke of entire villages disappearing overnight, devoured by these monsters without a trace. No one alive had ever seen a Garnak, but the fear lingered like an old scar, never fully healed. It was on such an evening, as the sky turned shades of orange and purple, that something strange happened. A loud boom echoed through the valley, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Villagers ran out of their homes, looking up at the sky in confusion. There, descending rapidly toward the edge of the forest, was a metallic object glowing red-hot. It crashed into the trees with a deafening roar, sending plumes of smoke spiraling upward. Unwu, a young hunter known for his curiosity and quick thinking, grabbed his spear and set off toward the crash site. He wasn't alone. Several others followed him, their faces tense with worry. What could it be? A falling star? Or perhaps something worse? When they arrived, they found a strange vessel half buried in the dirt, its surface scorched and dented. Before anyone could approach, a hatch opened with a hiss, and 3 figures stepped out. They looked unlike anything the Kryn had ever seen. Their bodies were taller and broader than those of the Kryn, with rougher features and clothing made of unfamiliar materials. 2 of them appeared calm, but the third carried a weapon slung across his back, his eyes scanning the area warily. "Hello?" one of them said cautiously, speaking in a language none of the Kryn understood. His voice was deep and unfamiliar, yet somehow not threatening. After a moment of silence, he tried again, gesturing toward himself. "We mean no harm." Though wary, the Kryn decided to bring the strangers back to the village. Hospitality was deeply ingrained in their culture, even when faced with uncertainty. Over the next few days, the villagers worked hard to communicate with the newcomers. Through gestures, drawings, and trial-and-error conversations, they learned the strangers' names: Daehyun, Hyejin, and Junsik. They claimed to be from a distant planet called Earth, fleeing a devastating war that had left their world in ruins. Daehyun, the eldest of the group, seemed practical and resourceful. He spent hours examining the damaged ship, muttering under his breath as he worked. Hyejin, a woman with a curious mind, wandered around the village, marveling at the plants and animals. She often knelt to collect samples, carefully storing them in small containers attached to her belt. Junsik, the soldier, remained vigilant, rarely let his guard down. He stayed close to his companions, his hand always near the weapon on his back. At first, the Kryn welcomed the humans warmly. They shared food, offered shelter, and tried their best to make the strangers feel at home. Many villagers admired the humans' technology, fascinated by the gadgets they carried and the stories they told of Earth's advancements. But not everyone trusted them. Unwu watched the humans closely, his instincts telling him something wasn't right. He noticed how Daehyun disappeared for hours at a time, returning with grease-streaked hands and a satisfied look on his face. He saw how Hyejin collected more than just plants. She also took soil samples and pieces of bark, labeling each one meticulously. And then there was Junsik, whose constant vigilance felt less like protection and more like preparation for something. One evening, Unwu approached the village elder, a wise woman named June. "Something about them doesn't sit well with me," he said quietly. "They're hiding something." June listened patiently, her expression thoughtful. "Fear can cloud our judgment," she replied gently. "These humans are lost and afraid. We must show them kindness, just as we would want if we were in their position." Unwu nodded reluctantly, but couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. That night, unable to sleep, he decided to investigate further. Armed with his spear, he crept out of the village and headed toward the crash site. The moonlight illuminated the path ahead, casting eerie shadows among the trees. When he reached the clearing, he froze. There, scattered around the damaged ship, were tools and supplies he hadn't noticed before. Boxes filled with wires, circuit boards, and other mechanical parts lay open, as if someone had been working on repairs. Nearby, a pile of discarded scraps suggested the humans weren't planning to leave anytime soon. As Un-Woo examined the scene, a sudden noise startled him. He turned sharply, gripping his spear tightly, only to see Dae-hyun emerge from behind the ship. The human froze, clearly surprised to find someone watching him. "What are you doing here?" Un-Woo demanded, his voice steady despite the unease bubbling inside him. Dae-hyun hesitated, then held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "Just fixing the ship," he said slowly, pointing to the wreckage. "We need to get it working again." Un-Woo narrowed his eyes. "Why didn't you tell us?" "It's complicated," Dae-hyun replied, avoiding his gaze. "We didn't want to cause any trouble." Trouble? The word hung heavily in the air. Un-Woo wanted to press further, to demand answers, but he knew he wouldn't get them tonight. Instead, he backed away, keeping his spear raised. "Be careful," he warned. "If you betray us, there will be consequences." Dae-hyun nodded solemnly, though his expression betrayed little emotion. As Un-Woo returned to the village, his mind raced with questions. Why were the humans lying? What did they really want? And most importantly, how far were they willing to go to get it? For now, the Kryn continued to treat the humans as guests, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. But Un-Woo couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread gnawing at his chest. Somewhere deep down, he knew the humans weren't just refugees seeking refuge. They were invaders waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The days that followed were filled with strange unease. The villagers tried to go about their usual routines, but the presence of the humans lingered like a shadow over everything they did. Though Dae-hyun, Hyejin, and Jun-sik continued to act friendly, Un-Woo couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He spent his nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling of his small wooden home, replaying the scene at the crash site in his mind. Meanwhile, odd things began happening around the village. One morning, a farmer discovered that several of his livestock had vanished without a trace. Tracks in the mud suggested the animals had been dragged away, their bodies too heavy for any predator native to Velora to carry. The next night, crops near the edge of the forest were trampled, as if something large and clumsy had wandered through them. The villagers whispered among themselves, their voices tinged with fear. Could it be the Garnax? One woman asked during a gathering. Her question sent a ripple of tension through the crowd. No one dared to answer loud, but the thought hung heavily in the air. Un-Woo listened silently, his jaw tightening. He didn't believe in the old legends, not entirely, but he couldn't ignore the signs either. Someone or something was disturbing the peace, and he was determined to find out what it was. That evening, armed with a spear and a lantern, he set off into the forest alone. The woods were quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of nocturnal birds. As he walked deeper into the shadows, Un-Woo's senses sharpened. Every sound seemed louder, every movement more suspicious. He followed the trail of broken branches and disturbed earth left behind by whatever or whoever had passed through recently. After hours of searching, he stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. Hidden beneath a cluster of thick bushes was a pile of tools and supplies. Some looked familiar. They matched the ones he'd seen scattered around the human ship. Others were completely alien, devices with blinking lights and humming mechanisms that Un-Woo couldn't begin to understand. Nearby, there were empty containers smeared with dark stains, along with scraps of fur and bone. Kneeling down, Un-Woo examined the remains more closely. His stomach churned as he realized what he was looking at. The mutilated carcasses of animals. Their bodies had been dissected, organs removed with surgical precision. Whoever had done this wasn't hunting for food. They were experimenting. A sudden noise snapped him out of his thoughts. Footsteps crunched softly on the forest floor, growing closer. Un-Woo quickly extinguished his lantern and pressed himself against a tree, holding his breath. Through the darkness, he saw a figure emerge, a human. It was Hyejin, her face pale in the moonlight as she crouched beside the pile of supplies. She opened a container and carefully placed something inside before sealing it shut. Unwu's grip tightened on his spear. He wanted to confront her right then and there, to demand answers, but caution held him back. Instead, he waited until she left, disappearing into the trees, before stepping forward to inspect the area again. Whatever the humans were doing, it wasn't innocent exploration. They were up to something far darker. Returning to the village just before dawn, Unwu sought out June, the elder. "I found evidence," he told her urgently, recounting everything he'd seen. "The humans are hiding things. They're taking samples, conducting experiments. They might even be responsible for the missing animals." June frowned, her weathered hands resting on her knees. "Are you certain of this?" she asked. "It's a serious accusation." "I'm sure," Unwu insisted. "They lied about repairing the ship, and now I've seen what they're really doing. We can't trust them." The elder sighed deeply, her expression troubled. "If what you say is true, we must handle this carefully. Accusing them outright could provoke conflict. Let me speak with them first." Though reluctant, Unwu agreed to wait. Later that day, June invited the humans to join her in the communal hall, where elders often gather to discuss important matters. Daehyun, Haijin, and Jun-sik accepted the invitation, though Jun-sik kept his hand near his weapon as always. "What is this about?" Daehyun asked once they were seated, his tone polite but guarded. "We've noticed some unusual activity lately." June began calmly. "Animals have gone missing, and parts of our land have been disturbed. Do you know anything about this?" Haijin shifted uncomfortably in her seat, while Daehyun exchanged a glance with Jun-sik. "We haven't seen anything unusual," Daehyun replied smoothly, "but we'll keep an eye out." June studied them carefully, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Perhaps you could explain why some of your supplies were found hidden in the forest." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Haijin spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "Those supplies are for research. I'm studying the ecosystem here. It's fascinating. I promise, we're not doing anything harmful." Her explanation sounded rehearsed, almost desperate. Unwu clenched his fists under the table, resisting the urge to shout the truth. But June remained calm, nodding slowly. "Research is admirable," she said, "but secrecy breeds mistrust. If you wish to continue your studies, you must do so openly." The meeting ended shortly afterward, leaving both sides uneasy. While the humans promised to be more transparent, Unwu knew better than to believe them. Over the next few days, tensions in the village grew palpable. Some Kryn sided with June, urging patience and understanding. Others, swayed by Unwu's warnings, demanded the humans leave immediately. Haijin attempted to win over skeptics by using her knowledge of medicine. When a young child fell ill with fever, she offered her remedies that helped bring the fever down. The grateful parents praised her kindness, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the humans might regain some trust. But Unwu saw through the act. Her actions weren't born of genuine compassion. They were calculated moves to manipulate the villagers. One afternoon, Unwu decided to confront Daehyun directly. He found the engineer working on the ship, surrounded by wires and tools. "Why are you still here?" Unwu demanded, his voice low but firm. "You said you wanted to fix your ship and leave. Why are you collecting samples and hiding things?" Daehyun paused, his hands hovering over a piece of machinery. For a moment, he looked caught off guard, but then his expression hardened. "We're stranded," he said simply. "Until the ship is fully repaired, we have no choice but to stay." As for the samples, Haijin explained everything already. "She's just trying to learn." "Learn what?" Unwu shot back. "What could possibly justify lying to us and sneaking around in the middle of the night?" Daehyun didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned back to his work, pretending to focus on the task at hand. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered finally. "Earth needs resources to survive. This planet has potential. We're only exploring options." The words hit Unwu like a punch to the gut. So it was true. The humans weren't just refugees. They were scouts sent to assess Velora for exploitation. Anger surged within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. "If you think we'll let you take from us, you're wrong," he said coldly. "Leave while you still can." Daehyun glanced up, his eyes cold and calculating. "And if we don't—" Eun-woo didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked away, his mind racing. The humans weren't going to leave willingly, not until they got what they came for. And when they did, the Kryn would pay the price for trusting them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Eun-woo felt a chill creep into his bones. The humans had brought danger to their doorstep, disguised as friendship. Now it was up to him and the rest of Kryn to decide how to fight back. The days grew heavier, each one darker than the last. The villagers of Elora moved like shadows, their usual cheer replaced by quiet whispers and anxious glances. Trust had been broken, and suspicion hung thick in the air. Eun-woo's warnings no longer fell on deaf ears. More and more Kryn began to question the humans' intentions, even those who had once defended them. Hygiene tried her best to maintain a facade of goodwill. She continued to help where she could, offering her knowledge of medicine and science whenever the opportunity arose. But her efforts fell hollow now. Every smile she gave was met with cold stares, every kind gesture dismissed as manipulation. Even the child she had healed weeks ago avoided her gaze when she passed by. Jun-sik, ever vigilant, kept his weapon close at all times. He rarely spoke unless spoken to, his sharp eyes scanning the villagers as if expecting an attack. Daehyun, meanwhile, worked tirelessly on the ship, often disappearing into the forest for hours at a time. His hands were always greasy, his face streaked with dirt, but there was a new urgency in his movements. It was clear he was preparing for something big. Eun-woo watched him closely, his spear never far from reach. He knew time was running out. Whatever the humans were planning, it wouldn't end well for the Kryn. But how could he prove it? How could he make the others see the truth before it was too late? One fateful evening, the answer came unexpectedly. A violent storm rolled in without warning, its angry winds tearing through the trees and sending sheets of rain crashing against the ground. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the village in brief, blinding flashes. Everyone scrambled to take shelter inside the communal hall, huddling together as the storm raged outside. Amid the chaos, Jun-sik tripped over a loose floorboard, dropping a small device he had been carrying. It skidded across the wooden floor, coming to rest near Eun-woo's feet. Without hesitation, Eun-woo bent down and picked it up. It was a data pad, sleek and metallic, unlike anything the Kryn used. Curious. He pressed a button on its surface, and the screen lit up, displaying lines of text written in Earth's language. Though Eun-woo couldn't read the words, the symbols looked familiar. He had seen similar markings on the tools and supplies hidden in the forest. Determined to uncover the truth, he slipped the device into his pocket, waiting for the right moment to examine it further. When the storm finally passed, leaving behind puddles and broken branches, Eun-woo retreated to his home. Using what little light remained in the sky, he studied the data pad carefully. Much of the information was incomprehensible, but some parts stood out. Words like resource extraction, colonization, and Earth survival appeared repeatedly. Fragments of sentences hinted at plans to strip Elora of its natural wealth and enslave its people. Eun-woo's heart sank as realization dawned. The humans weren't just scouts. They were the first wave of an invasion. Their mission wasn't to explore or survive. It was to conquer, and the Kryn, naive and trusting, had welcomed them with open arms. Unable to keep this knowledge to himself, Eun-woo sought out June once again. He showed her the data pad, explaining everything he had discovered. At first, the elder refused to believe him, insisting that such cruelty couldn't exist. But as Eun-woo pointed out specific details, the coordinates of mining sites, the estimated value of Elora's resources, her expression darkened. "This changes everything," June said gravely. "If what you say is true, we must act quickly." The next morning, the villagers gathered in the central square. June addressed them, her voice trembling with emotion as she revealed the humans' true intentions. Gasps of disbelief turned to murmurs of anger as the reality sank in. Some called for immediate retaliation, while others argued for peaceful negotiation. The debate grew heated, voices rising until the square buzzed with tension. Daehyun, Hygiene, and Jun-sik arrived midway through the discussion, sensing the unrest. They stood at the edge of the crowd, their faces unreadable. When June finished speaking, Dae-hyun stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We didn't want it to come to this," he admitted, his tone calm but firm. "But Earth is dying. Our planet has been ravaged by war and greed, and we need new resources to survive. Velora offers us hope, a chance to rebuild." His words sparked outrage. Villagers shouted accusations, calling the humans liars and thieves. Hygiene looked visibly shaken, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded for understanding. "We didn't mean to hurt anyone," she cried. We thought maybe we could find a way to coexist." June 6 said nothing, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. His silence spoke volumes. After a long and heated discussion, the elders reached a decision. The humans would be given 1 day to leave Elora. If they refused, the Kryn would defend their home by any means necessary. Though many were frightened by the prospect of conflict, they stood united in their resolve. Dae-hyun nodded reluctantly. "We'll go," he promised. "But dismantling the ship will take time. Give us until tomorrow morning." The villagers agreed, though not without suspicion. That night, Un-woo kept watch, unwilling to let his guard down. He patrolled the perimeter of the village, his spear gripped tightly in his hands. Sleep eluded him, his mind racing with thoughts of what might happen next. At dawn, the humans were gone. The ship had vanished, leaving behind scorched earth and shattered trust. For a brief moment, relief washed over the villagers. They had driven the invaders away, protecting their home and their way of life. But the victory was short-lived. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting light on the devastation left behind, Un-woo noticed something troubling. Trees near the crash site had been stripped bare, their bark peeled away to reveal raw wood beneath. Patches of soil were blackened, as if poisoned by chemicals. The humans hadn't just taken resources. They had damaged the land itself. Worse still, there was no guarantee they wouldn't return. Un-woo knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The humans had shown their true nature, proving themselves to be far more dangerous than any mythical monster. And if they came back with reinforcements, the Kryn would need to be ready. As he stood amidst the ruins, gazing at the horizon, Un-woo felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and determination. The humans had betrayed them, yes, but they had also taught the Kryn an important lesson. Peace was precious, but it required strength to protect. From now on, the Kryn would remain vigilant, guarding their world against those who sought to exploit it. For the first time in his life, Un-woo understood the weight of responsibility. He wasn't just a hunter anymore. He was a protector, a defender of his people and their way of life. And he would do whatever it took to ensure their survival. The storm may have passed, but the scars it left behind would remain. The Kryn had faced their fears and emerged stronger, though wiser to the dangers lurking beyond their borders. They had feared monsters, only to discover that humans were worse. Yet amidst the pain and uncertainty, there was also hope. Hope that, together, they could overcome anything. And so, life in Velora went on, not as it had before, but with newfound sense of purpose. The humans were gone, but their shadow lingered, a reminder of the fragile balance between trust and betrayal, peace and conflict. Months passed, but the memory of the humans lingered like a scar that refused to heal. The Kryn worked tirelessly to repair the damage left behind, replanting trees, cleaning poisoned soil, and restoring their sacred spaces. Yet no matter how much they tried, the scars remained. Blackened patches of earth resisted new growth, and the once thriving forest edges now stood barren and lifeless. The villagers spoke less and less about the incident, but their eyes betrayed lingering fear. They had trusted strangers, only to be betrayed. And though the humans had fled, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they returned. Un-woo became a constant presence in the village, his role shifting from hunter to protector. He spent long hours training others in combat, teaching them how to use spears and traps effectively. His lessons were simple but practical. Stay alert, trust your instincts, work together. Many of the Kryn struggled with the idea of fighting. They were a peaceful people by nature, but Un-woo's determination inspired them. Slowly, they began to prepare for the worst. One morning, As the sun rose over the hills, a deafening roar shattered the quiet. Villagers rushed outside, looking up at the sky in horror. Dozens of massive ships descended from above, their metallic surfaces gleaming ominously in the sunlight. These weren't small vessels like the one that had crashed months ago. They were enormous, bristling with weapons and machinery. As they hovered over the village, panels opened and smaller craft dropped to ground, disgorging hundreds of humans clad in armor and armed with advanced weapons. The leader of this new force was a woman named Subin. Her voice boomed through speakers mounted on her ship, cold and commanding. "This planet is now under Earth's protection," she announced. "You will surrender your resources and cooperate fully. Resistance will not be tolerated." Subin's words sent shockwaves through the village. Some Kryn froze in terror, while others shouted protests. Jiun stepped forward, her frail frame trembling but her voice steady. "We are not your enemies," she said. "Leave us in peace, and we will cause you no harm." Subin's response was swift and brutal. A single blast from one of her ships obliterated a nearby hilltop, sending rocks tumbling down into the valley. "Do not test my patience," she warned. "Submit or face destruction." Faced with overwhelming force, most of the Kryn reluctantly complied. They handed over food, tools, and anything else the humans demanded. But submission didn't mean acceptance. Anger simmered beneath the surface, growing stronger with each passing day. Unwu watched silently as his people were forced to dig trenches, haul heavy equipment, and mine precious minerals from the earth. The humans showed no mercy, driving the Kryn to exhaustion. Those who resisted were beaten or imprisoned, their cries echoing through the once peaceful village. Hygiene was among the invaders, though her role had changed. She now served as a medic, tending to wounded humans, and occasionally helping injured Kryn when ordered to do so. Her presence confused many villagers. Was she truly complicit in this invasion, or was she just another pawn? Unwu avoided her whenever possible, unable to look at her, without feeling a mix of anger and pity. As weeks turned into months, the humans' greed became undeniable. They stripped the land bare, drilling deep into the mountains and polluting rivers with toxic waste. Sacred sites were desecrated, reduced to rubble in their relentless pursuit of resources. The lush beauty of Elora faded, replaced by barren wastelands and choking smoke. Even the wildlife disappeared, driven away by the noise and destruction. Unwu couldn't stand idly by any longer. Gathering a group of trusted companions, he devised a plan. If they couldn't fight the humans directly, they would strike indirectly, sabotaging equipment, freeing captives, and disrupting supply lines. Their first target was a mining operation near the edge of the forest. Under cover of darkness, Unwu led his team to the site, moving silently through the shadows. Using makeshift tools, they disabled several machines, causing chaos when workers arrived the next morning. Over the following days, similar incidents occurred across the occupied territory. Explosions rocked storage facilities, and vital shipments went missing. The humans grew increasingly frustrated, blaming the delays on faulty equipment or bad luck. For the first time since the invasion, the Kryn felt a glimmer of hope, but hope came at a cost. One night, during an attempt to rescue captured villagers, Unwu's group was ambushed. Outnumbered and outgunned, they barely escaped with their lives. 2 members of the team were captured, dragged away screaming as the rest fled into the forest. Unwu blamed himself for the failure, his guilt weighing heavily on him. He vowed never to let his guard down again. Amid the turmoil, Unwu encountered Hygiene once more. She approached him cautiously during a rare moment when he ventured close to the human camp. "I know what you're doing," she whispered urgently. "You need to stop. They'll kill you if they find out." "And whose fault is that?" Unwu snapped, his voice low but sharp. "You helped them come here. You let them destroy everything." Tears welled up in Hygiene's eyes. "I didn't have a choice," she insisted. "They would have killed me too if I hadn't cooperated. Please, I'm trying to help where I can." Her words softened Unwu slightly, but not enough to forgive her. "Helping isn't enough," he said bitterly. "If you really cared, you'd leave. Take your people and never come back." Hygiene shook her head, her expression pained. "It's too late for that. Even if I wanted to, I can't change what's happening. All I can do is try to survive." Their conversation ended abruptly as voices echoed nearby. Hygiene hurried back to the camp, leaving Unwu alone with his thoughts. He hated her for her weakness, yet part of him understood her desperation. The humans were cruel, ruthless conquerors, and anyone who opposed them risked death. Still, understanding didn't mean forgiveness. Hygiene had chosen survival over morality, and that choice made her no better than the rest. Despite setbacks, Unwu pressed on. Each act of sabotage weakened the humans' grip, giving the Kryn a chance to regroup and resist. Word spread quickly, inspiring others to join the fight. Small pockets of rebellion sprang up throughout the region, united by a shared goal: freedom. Yet even as resistance grew, the cost of defiance mounted. Entire villages were burned to the ground, their inhabitants taken prisoner or executed. The sacred mountain where the Kryn believed the Garnax originated was defiled, its ancient carvings chiseled away to make room for mining equipment. The Kryn mourned their losses quietly, clinging to their faith despite the horrors unfolding around them. One evening, as Unwu stood atop a hill overlooking the devastation, he felt a strange sensation, a deep rumble beneath his feet. At first, he thought it was an earthquake, but then he heard it, a low, guttural growl emanating from the heart of the mountain. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. Something or someone was awake. For a moment, Unwu hesitated. The legends of the Garnax had always seemed like myths, stories told to frighten children. But now, faced with the reality of human cruelty, he wondered if the monsters might actually exist. If they did, perhaps they could turn the tide against the invaders. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: the battle for Velora was far from over. The humans had brought destruction and despair, but they had also awakened something primal within the Kryn, a fierce determination to protect their home, no matter the cost. And if the Garnax were real, they might just become allies in the fight to reclaim Velora. As the stars emerged overhead, Unwu tightened his grip on his spear. The road ahead would be long and perilous, but he was ready. The Kryn had endured betrayal, loss, and pain. Now, they would rise again not as victims, but as warriors. The final battle began at the Sacred Mountain, a place that stood as the heart of Kryn culture for generations. Its towering peaks were once covered in lush greenery and marked with ancient carvings that told the stories of their ancestors. Now it was scarred by the humans' greed. Mining tunnels gouged into its sides, machinery grinding away at its core. The mountain groaned under the weight of destruction, as if crying out for help. Unwu led a small group of rebels to the base of the mountain, their faces painted with ash and determination. They carried crude weapons, spears, knives, and makeshift explosives, but their greatest weapon was their unity. The Kryn had suffered too much to back down now. This was their last stand, their chance to reclaim their home or die trying. As dawn broke, the humans launched an assault on the mountain. Subin's forces moved in with precision, their armored vehicles rumbling over the uneven terrain. Armed soldiers fanned out, firing energy blasts that lit up the morning mist. The air filled with the sound of explosions and shouting as the two sides clashed. Unwu fought fiercely, his spear striking true against the invaders. He moved like a shadow, darting between rocks and trees, always staying one step ahead. His companions followed his lead, using guerrilla tactics to pick off isolated groups of humans. For every machine they destroyed, for every enemy they drove back, hope grew stronger among the Kryn. But the humans were relentless. Their numbers seemed endless, their weapons far superior. Slowly but surely, they pushed the Kryn defenders toward the mountain's peak. Unwu knew they couldn't hold out forever. If something didn't change soon, the battle and Velora itself would be lost. Then, just as all seemed hopeless, the ground beneath them trembled violently. A deafening roar echoed through the valley, shaking loose rocks from the cliffs above. From the depths of the mountain emerged a creature unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a Garnak. It was massive, its serpentine body covered in shimmering scales that reflected the sunlight. Its eyes glowed with otherworldly light, and its claws gleamed like polished steel. The legends were real. The Garnak attacked without hesitation, targeting both Kryn and humans alike. It swung its tail, sending soldiers flying through the air like rag dolls. It crushed vehicles underfoot, reducing them to twisted metal. Energy blasts bounced harmlessly off its thick hide, enraging it further. Chaos erupted as everyone scrambled to escape the monster's wrath. Unwu watched in awe as the Garnak rampaged through the battlefield. At first, he feared it would destroy everything in its path. But then he noticed something. The Garnak wasn't attacking randomly. It seemed drawn to the mining equipment, tearing apart drills and generators with ferocious intensity. It wasn't driven by malice. It was protecting its territory. An idea sparked in Unwu's mind. If he could guide the Garnak toward the human command center, the hub of their operations, he might force Su-Bin to retreat. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. Summoning his courage, Unwu ran toward the Garnak, dodging falling debris and stray blasts. He shouted and waved his arms, drawing its attention. The creature turned its glowing eyes on him, snarling menacingly. For a moment, Unwu thought it would attack him, but instead, it followed his movements, curious about this bold figure who dared approach it. "Come on," Unwu muttered under his breath, leading the Garnak toward the command center. Behind him, his companions created diversions, keeping the humans occupied while he executed his plan. The Garnak lumbered forward, its massive form casting a shadow over the battlefield. When they reached the command center, Unwu signaled for his team to fall back. Then, with a deep breath, he hurled a makeshift explosive at the structure. The blast triggered a chain reaction, causing the entire complex to collapse in flames. The Garnak roared triumphantly, smashing what remained with its claws. Su-Bin, realizing she was losing control of the situation, issued a retreat order. "Fall, communicator. We've overstayed our welcome." The remaining human forces scrambled to board their ships, abandoning equipment and prisoners in their haste to escape. As the vessels ascended into the sky, the Garnak let out one final roar before retreating into the mountain, disappearing as mysteriously as it had appeared. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Kryn emerged cautiously from their hiding places, surveying the devastation around them. Though victorious, the cost had been high. Homes were destroyed, lives lost, and the land scarred beyond recognition. Yet amidst the ruins, there was also relief. The humans were gone, for now. Unwu stood at the edge of the mountain, gazing at the horizon. His body ached from the fight, but his spirit felt lighter than it had in months. The Garnak's appearance had been unexpected, even miraculous, but it wasn't what saved them. It was the Kryn themselves, their resilience, their unity, their refusal to give up. June approached him, leaning heavily on her staff. "You did well," she said softly. "Your bravery gave us a second chance." "It wasn't just me," Unwu replied. "It was all of us. We stood together when it mattered most." The elder nodded, her expression thoughtful. "The humans will remember this day, and they may return, but we are stronger now. We know what we're capable of." As the villagers began the long process of rebuilding, Unwu reflected on everything that had happened. The humans had brought fear and destruction, proving themselves to be far worse than any mythical monster. But they had also taught the Kryn an important lesson. Peace required strength to protect it. From now on, the Kryn would remain vigilant, guarding their world against those who sought to exploit it. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to Velora. Trees sprouted anew in the blackened soil, and animals ventured back to the forest. The scars of war would take time to heal, but the Kryn faced the future with hope. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, though wiser to the dangers lurking beyond their borders. For Unwu, the experience changed him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. He was no longer just a hunter. He was a leader, a protector of his people. And though he carried the weight of responsibility, he also carried pride in himself, in his community, and in the knowledge that they had fought for what truly mattered. The humans had feared nothing, not even the consequences of their actions. But the Kryn had learned to fear wisely, respecting the balance between trust and caution. They had feared monsters, only to discover that humans were worse. Yet despite the pain and loss, they had found strength in each other, proving that even in the darkest times, hope could endure. And so, life in Velora went on, not as it had before, but with a newfound sense of purpose. The humans were gone, but their shadow lingered, a reminder of the fragile line between trust and betrayal, peace and conflict. The Kryn vowed never to forget the lessons they had learned. Together, they would rebuild, protect, and thrive, ensuring that their world remained a sanctuary for generations to come.